Yeah, welcome to this session at the World Knowledge Forum on rearming Europe. Now, if you follow European affairs at all, you know that Europe is entering a new era. Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022 shattered assumptions that there would never be another major war in Europe, at least in our lifetime. On top of that, now, the United States has withdrawn the security umbrella that it has been providing unconditionally, more or less, for Europe for decades. It is insisting, Washington is insisting, and with good reason, that Europe take on more responsibility for the bulk of its own security. In response, European governments are massively increasing their defense budgets. Germany alone is planning to double its expenditure in defense within the next 4 years. The European Union, together with its 27 member states, has launched an initiative to spend around up to 800 billion euros in a program that's called Readiness 2030. That's a lot of money. But here's the catch. Spending more doesn't necessarily automatically make you stronger, right? Europe's defense industry is fragmented, its politicians are hesitant, and the defense there's no blueprint for integrating all the systems and equipment, technologies, and personnel that's needed to defend Europe properly. You can spend all that money, but if you don't spend it right, then it's not going to do much for you. Europe in this situation needs partners, and Asia matters. South Korean defense companies are among the fastest growing in the world. Japan is also increasing its security profile. The partnerships between Europe and Asia will help shape Europe's capacity to rearm. How fast that happens and how smartly that happens will depend in part on these partnerships. Well, that's my little introduction. Just to get things going, I'm going to put some questions to our panelists. I'll introduce them quickly again for you, just giving a couple of details on who they are and where they're coming from, because the mix we have on this panel is really valuable for understanding what we're talking about. Next to me, Wouter von Wersch is president of International at Airbus. Now that's significant because Airbus is Europe's biggest aeronautics company. It has major defense and space arms divisions. He brings extensive Asian experience already to the European defense discussion. He's lived and worked in Asia extensively. Next to him, Jinhoon is head of a D2C research center at LIG Nex1, a Korean company that is already helping to equip European armies, and we're going to hear more about that. And as we've already seen, a very well-known face, particularly in Europe, perhaps here too as well, Dmytro Kuleba is former foreign minister of Ukraine. He can tell us what is most urgently needed right now on the battlefield, because I want to remind everyone again that there is a war raging in Europe right now with people dying every day. Okay, so let's dive straight into this discussion. We have serious issues on the table, and it's imperative that Europe gets this right for reasons that I need not explain to you. We're going to talk a little bit about the strategic landscape first, and I want to eventually get into a focus on how Europe and Asia can maybe cooperate more closely. You're already cooperating, but how that might be brought out moving forward. So my first question will be to Minister Kuleba. From Ukraine's perspective, is Europe's rearmament happening quickly enough? And is it focused on the right mix of capabilities to deter Russian aggression?
Good afternoon. First of all, it's a big pleasure to be here and to join such a distinguished panel. The short answer to both of your questions is no. Because when you are at war, you act at a much faster speed than the side that is not at war by definition. Because it doesn't matter how close your friends, partners, and allies are, you are the one who feels the pressure of time on its skin. I give you a very classic example. Europe has done a lot for Ukraine, massively. And in many areas, it actually outperformed the most, I would say, cautious expectations. So there are things that Europe should be appreciated for. But in 2023, the European Union promised to deliver, the whole European Union promised to deliver 1 million artillery shells to Ukraine within a year, within a reasonable period of time. 6 or 8 months later, North Korea started delivering its artillery shells to Russia. And they were used on the front line in Ukraine, while the European Union was still lagging behind in fulfilling its commitments. So North Korea turned to be more efficient than the European Union on the issue of delivery of ammunition. I'm sure this is never going to happen again, because over the last 2 years, the ammunition production muscle has been significantly built in Europe. But in principle, Europe is always in a race against time. Europe is always challenged by its own regulations that slow it down. And Europe is always struggling to give the right answer to the issue of relevance, like what are we spending money on? These are the 3 issues that European Union is stumbling over: time, regulation, and relevance. It's doing better and better, but as long as the war rages on, I think we have the right to say that more needs to be done, and at a much faster pace.
Wouter van Wersch, Europe speaks often about strategic sovereignty. Some people used to say autonomy. They don't really say that much anymore, but strategic sovereignty. How do you understand that as a European business leader with international experience? Because I mentioned that in your introduction, you do have a lot of international experience. I'm wondering how you see this. Is sovereignty about independence from others, or is it about building better partnerships?
So look, I think it's a bit of both. As you mentioned in your introduction, we're going through massive changes in the world order, a lot of economic headwinds, geopolitical tensions. I think this has helped to wake up Europe. So I think that's the positive thing. Europe is understanding that it needs to act. It needs to become more independent, build up its own resources to be able to defend itself, help Ukraine, of course, as much as possible. And I think from a company perspective, we are quite well positioned to do this, because we are, of course, a European company. So I would say that there is a realization that we need to be more autonomous as Europe, that the US will be less supportive, and so we need to defend ourselves. The problem of Europe is it's a very fragmented market, as was rightly mentioned. We have a lot of very important countries, but the alignment is not always there. And from a European perspective, we do need to be more aligned. A couple of examples. First of all, Europe has not invested enough in defense. I think that Europe invests 20% of what the US invests. And out of these 20%, 80% is acquired outside of Europe. And if you look at the European suppliers, we have a very fragmented number of suppliers. So of course we are the biggest ones, but there's a lot of big ones also there. So I think what really needs to be done in order for us to play our role and to be able to help Ukraine more strongly, we also need to unify ourselves. We need to group the supply side, so make sure that we are more talking with one voice from a supply side, but we also need to aggregate the demand side. And I think Europe is waking up to this. They are setting up a lot of actions, Readiness 2030, the new SAFE initiatives to help also the industry to grow. So this is a wake-up call. I'm positive. I think I see movements. But as was also mentioned earlier on, it needs to go fast. And Europe is still very bureaucratic. So there's a lot of topics that need to be addressed to make it happen. And I really hope this will go as quickly as possible, because in 2029, I hope we will be fully autonomous.
That's a number, 2029. That's 4 years. Okay. Well, Kim Jinhoon, Korea has gone through its own rapid defense build-up. What lessons or cautionary tales could Europe learn from Korea's experience?
Okay. First of all, I am glad to be here with you, having the opportunity to talk about LIG Nex1, which is Korean company, defense company. My company's business area is about all mission equipment of all weapon systems, precise sensing, multi-purpose robot, drone, and the other combat systems. So your question is about Korean lesson about in the past experiences. I think the Korea's unique geopolitical position and location, which is constant threat from adjacent countries, caused those threats to Korea. From these conditions, we have a lot of experience about wars and how to have our national security capability, and we need to have our own defense capabilities. So in these experiences can help Europe set up their own defense capabilities, and we can help Europe have those abilities in set up their own defense systems. That's my opinion.
Thank you. I want to get in now to the industrial roles a little more deeply now, and the whole question of capabilities and how Europe, in its effort to rearm, can indeed boost that. And I just want to make one important point before we proceed. I mean, South Korea is a country to itself. It is a sovereign country. The European Union is a collection of countries, a collection of sovereign countries which sometimes compete with each other and cooperate with each other. So there are inherent challenges in that fragmentation. I just want to note that complicated a little bit in making a comparison. But Wouter van der Wersch, Airbus, it coordinates a lot of work with European countries. But beyond Europe, tell us more about how you're thinking about international partnerships, particularly with Asia. Could collaboration with countries like Korea or Japan accelerate Europe's rearmament push?
So again, it's all about cooperation. If you look at, as I mentioned, the different technologies, it's too fragmented, so there needs to be more alignment, and we need to avoid duplication of R&D. Now, if I look at Airbus, we have a very long-lasting presence in Korea. We have some great partners that have been meeting over these days, and I think Korea is gaining momentum, or at least in the defense, has won a number of big contracts in Europe. And from our perspective, we are a very cooperative company, and we've grown through cooperation within Europe, but we have also grown through cooperation with worldwide players. There's a lot of technology in Korea, and we see the win-win for all of us. So definitely what's happening in Europe is a risk, but it's also an opportunity, I would say. The SAFE fund and system that was set up by the EU is a great opportunity, and in that loan fund there is possibility to have foreign companies involved, as long as they partner with a European company. So I see opportunities to tie up, to leverage some of the money that Europe is putting in place to grow the defense capabilities in Europe. I see opportunities for Korean companies if they team up with European companies. So I think there's different parts. There's the business side, there's the innovation side, the technology side, but to whichever side you look, I think cooperation is the key word. And the mindset and the values that we share between the European countries and Korea are very similar. And that's the good starting point for further work together. I've had, again, several meetings already today, and I think we all have the same ambition, make this world safer. And to do so, we need to make sure that the right deterrence is in place. And to do so, we need to do it together. So that's really our vision, and I'm sure that Korea has a key role to play. And of course, not only Korea, many other countries in Asia Pacific that have the same ideas and mindset.
Dmytro, Kuleba, how does this look from your perspective as former foreign minister of Ukraine? I mean, you have been trying to help your country address its challenges in repelling Russia's aggression against your country. You've been getting a lot of support from other countries, including countries in Asia. Do you see Asia playing an important role moving forward in being able to help Europe address its defense needs?
Well, Asia is certainly very important, but Asia is also very different. And thirdly, I think the rising power of China in the region, the alignment of North Korea with Russia and China, so visibly presented just recently in Beijing, will create a sense of threat and urgency, already creates a sense of urgency and threat in the region itself. So what do you do when you actually feel that you may need weapons to defend yourself? You keep them with yourself, which means that you will be sending less of technology and weapons to foreign markets if you believe that you may need it as well. Because one of the biggest problems that Europe and America realized since the beginning of the Russian invasion in Ukraine is that stockpiles are kind of empty, that there is nothing in the warehouse that would match the needs of the war that would last more than 5 days or a week, I don't know. So this is a big concern, filling your own warehouses and stockpiles. That will be a constraint. But Korea is massively present in Poland now, which is our neighbor. I remember the times when the supplies from Korea allowed Poland to release some of the equipment, of their old equipment, and deliver it to Ukraine. So that was indirectly helpful to us. But the concern is, it's like everything in life, it has two faces. On the one hand, it's good that everyone has realized that it's good to have weapons. There is nothing bad about it, and started spending money on it and on technology as well. On the other hand, it leads to the growth of militarism and the arms race. And in the end, the positive side of this rearmament process will be balanced with the negative side, by the negative side of the rearmament process. But finally, I would like to say that under these circumstances, more and more countries, including the European Union as a common market, begin to think much deeply about the issue of self-reliance, which will also have consequences.
In a moment, I do want to get your perspectives on where the greatest potential for cooperation might lie, and what particular sectors, what particular areas. But first, I want to bring us back to Ukraine, because what's happening in Ukraine, Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, has set all of this in motion, right? Together with what is happening politically in the United States. And there's a larger geopolitical context, we know, with the sorts of alliances that are forming outside of that. So I want to ask quickly, what lessons have been learned from Ukraine for people who are trying to ramp up Europe's defense sector? And I would put that question to all three of you. What has been learned from what has been going on in Ukraine? And maybe we go ahead here with Airbus and then move to Ukraine itself and then back here to Korea.
So what the two main lessons for us is that actually we as a company are in long lead items, I would say. What has really been needed very quickly on the ground is ammunition, missiles and things like this, while Airbus is really into aircraft, helicopters, so long lead items that you can't just...
Space too, which takes a long time to do.
Space also, and you know, if you order an if we want to bring an aircraft to Ukraine today, I mean, either one of the countries has to give it, that's okay, but if we need to build a new one for Ukraine, it will be there in 3 years' time. So that's the first big realization, that we are in the defense, but in the long-term defense market, and that's why I was mentioning 2029 for Europe, because we need to invest today to be fully autonomous in 2029. If I look at the products that we deliver. So I think that's one. Secondly, is that very interestingly, if you look at the drones in Ukraine, I think war can push tremendous innovation and speeding up of development, because what Ukraine has been doing is quite remarkable. In terms of the drones, they're really making the life of the Russians difficult, and they didn't really have a drone industry before. So I think that would be the two big learnings for us. That short term, it's difficult for us to support, because you know, we don't have the products available on the shelf. But that you also need to realize developments go very fast.
Minister Kuleba, tell us what sort of lessons have been learned from what's been going on in the war there in terms of how to ramp up capabilities quickly, which Ukraine has had to do under fire, and the rest of Europe feeling the pressure too, feeling the heat and the threat and the risk growing, is wanting to do that too. What can be learned there from what's going on in Ukraine?
Well, first I feel compelled to say that tomorrow at 5 o'clock in this very room I will have a whole talk about the lessons from Ukraine. So I cannot steal the show from myself, but
maybe just one
out
lesson.
of respect to the audience who came to this panel, I will say this. First, you can build a lot from zero. That's like the drone industry in Ukraine is the best example of that. The second lesson, so you shouldn't be afraid of actually embarking on a journey, on a task of building something out of scratch. The second lesson is that there are things that you cannot build fast. So better start developing them now. And the first weapon that comes to my mind in that regard is, of course, air defenses. There is a critical shortage of air defense systems in the world. So the technology of hitting a target is more advanced than the technology of intercepting the missile or the drone that is trying to hit it. And that's a big question, because air defenses are extremely complicated, sophisticated systems. And finally, there are, I think, in my view, although there are far more capable and knowledgeable people, colleagues at the panel here, and they maybe correct me, but I think what Ukraine quickly realized is that two fundamental issues that need to be resolved in order to be able to build an efficient defense for your country, three fundamental issues are autonomy, and we speak a lot about autonomy of nations, but autonomy of weapons is of course fundamental. Second, it's propulsion, like how do you deliver the weapon at a fast speed in a safe way to the target. And third, and this is by far more important than anything else, it's the will to fight. In Germany, the country that is going to spend more than anyone else on rearmament, I'm afraid they already realized that they will be having more tanks than crews to drive those tanks. So you also have to prepare the society for the reality in which it will have to come to defend itself. I mean, we don't have to tell this story to Korea, right? But in principle, situation in many other countries around the world is very different. And the realization that you have to be able, that the war will not be fully autonomous. You will need human beings at large scale. That is the point that many miss while kind of racing, while taking part in a technology race.
So there's a sense of urgency that is needed in order to make things happen, and yeah, we're hoping that Europe is waking up to this. Kim Jinhoon, any lessons that you've been watching what's been going on in Korea and how Europe has been responding, and you're working with European partners already in trying to address Europe's growing security needs. What do you see coming out of all of this, out of the war in Ukraine, and what has been learned from that? Because everyone is watching that and talking about it. This question is a question that it gets raised all the time.
That's a very difficult question. I think the reason why I am here as a representative of LIG Nex1, Korea's defense company, is to find out some collaboration opportunity with Europe, what to do and how to do for enhancing European defense capabilities, how Korea companies can help those goals. I think LIG Nex1 has a lot of experiences and technologies in changing advanced warfare-related technologies. I think there are two main technologies, AI and wireless communication. So AI-based warfare concept is SDW, which is called software-defined warfare. We are researching and investigating how we can implement SDW in real battlefield, including ground, air, and sea. So in those areas, if Europe wants to have the chance to work with Korean company, please contact Korean defense companies. LIG Nex1 is good choices, I think. So I will wait. I will wait, and I'm looking forward to seeing your contact.
Thank you. I'm going to open the floor for questions now. I believe there's someone with a microphone available. Great. We already have one question. Just raise your hand, and I'll try to get to you over the next few minutes. We'll start with the gentleman in the front table. Just please identify yourself and put your question to a specific person on the panel if you can. If not, I'll give you my microphone.
Hello.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm from private equity called KCGI, and I have a question for Airbus and LIG Nex1. So I think defense industry, some investors have concerns regarding the ESG perspective. I think some investors, the defense industry is it's not really ESG compliant, and sometimes they, don't like to invest defense companies in their portfolios. So I want to hear your experience and how you make sure that the company is operating in a way that every shareholders are feeling comfortable. Thank you.
So no, I think it's an excellent question because we of course get the question a lot. If I look at Airbus specifically, if we put it back in context, the defense activities of the group is about 15%. We have a lot of civil activities, and so our shareholders they realize that of course the civil activities are the dominant part. We have a lot of dual use. So you know, we have helicopters that can be used in the military, but they also can be used to save lives. We have aircraft that can be used to transport troops, but they are also used to evacuate when there's a natural disaster or when there is a, you know, like Kabul had to be emptied by, so then we send our A400Ms. So I think, you know, we are positioning ourselves, yes, we have defense in our portfolio and we are proud of it. We use defense to ensure the countries or the countries that have our equipment can maintain their sovereignty, can defend themselves and can deter any attack onto them. So we, in the latest, you know, latest announcement we've made, we rarely get questions. It's part of the portfolio. Technologically, of course, having all these different sectors helps us to learn and to get better. You know, sustainability is a big part in ESG. The fact that we are in defense helps us also in the sustainability thinking. So on an Airbus side, it's top of the agenda, but we don't get really challenged on this.
What would you say to, or what do you say? I mean, you're still engaging on this topic with your European partners. What do you think they need to prioritize in order to ramp up the European defense industry in the way that they envision? Where do they need to start?
Well, as I mentioned in the very beginning, and I think many other countries are facing the same problems. It's time. They have to prioritize the pace with which they develop. They really have to seriously lose the regulations, which will be the most difficult, painful, I would even say torturing exercise for the European Union, because the European Union was built on the assumption that regulation is a good thing, is the way to efficiency. And when you have 27 countries that you have to bring together on a specific point, of course, regulation helps to balance the interests of all sides. But when the reality, when the circumstances change, you have to approach it in a different way. I keep saying that Europe needs more Airbuses, not in terms of planes, although, and helicopters, although that also may be the case, but Europe needs strong, unified programs. Why Airbus is successful, sorry for offering an unsolicited opinion, it's because hundreds, if not thousands, of companies across Europe know what they are doing. There is a single program, they know the final outcome, the final product, the regulation is aligned, and this approach has to be applied across the defense sector. And finally, another most important issue is, of course, again, relevance. There is a saying that generals always prepare for the war of the past, right? So how do we actually prepare for the war of the future? What are we spending on? What is the technology that we are investing on? What are we betting on? So these are the three issues which, in my mind, wreckle Europe's mind, and it struggles to find answers to them in order to be efficient. And there are many other factors, like the rise of the far left and far right who disagree with the centrist politicians in Europe that Europe needs to be rearmed, and instead they offer to come to terms with Putin and everything will be fine. That's another constraining element. And that some countries like France, for example, is very ambitious when it comes to defense, but its pockets are empty, so it cannot actually realize its own ambitions. So there are tons of problems that need to be addressed, but these three, the one that I mentioned, time, regulation, and relevance, lay at the core of the effort.
Can I respond?
Please do.
Thank you for the advertising. But I think you have a very good point. If you look at some of the successful programs that have been launched at European level, the tankers, for example, MRTT. I mean, Korea knows them. We've got them flying here. These were developed through the coming together of a number of European countries, and a great product was developed There's even what we call an MMF, so there is a fleet of aircraft that is used by 5, 6, 7, 8 now European countries. So they pool the resources. We've, from an Airbus perspective, so that's the MRTT, we've done the A400M, which is a European program, the NH90, and these are all success stories. Every time, every country has maybe given up a little bit on its independence, but in the end, it's been for the good of everybody. It created the right technologies. There was not anymore any conflict or competition within the European Union or the European countries. And it worked very well. And we are very keen to go further, to do more. We look at the new developments. We're looking at some developments. We have done developments of helicopters with Korea. And Korea has now a fantastic fleet that they are totally owning. The KUH helicopter, the LAH, all beautiful names. Sorry for the acronyms, but great helicopters. And they are now Korean-made thanks to this collaboration. So it's all about being ready to put the things on the table, take the best out of every country or every company, and then you can be successful. On every aircraft, we have 4,000 suppliers. Can you imagine? 4,000. We have a worldwide supply chain, and we take for every component the best companies. So do they come from Korea, from Japan, from Singapore, or France, or Germany, or Holland? We don't care. We take the best, and we make it work.
I want to thank our audience for being with us, of course, while Justin Trudeau is somewhere here also speaking. We feel very privileged and honored that you were with us this afternoon. Thanks for being here. But above all, thanks to our three distinguished panelists. Please give them a warm round of applause, and we'll have to wrap it up here. Thank you very much.